Chinese cigarettes anymore. They really wanted American cigarettes. And do I know of any place where he can get American cigarette tobacco? Well, we were in a wholesale cigar business. We didn't even deal in cigar tobacco. We dealt just in a finished product. But I made some inquiries, and none of the sources that we dealt with for cigars knew anything about cigarette tobacco. So I wrote him that. And then eventually he wrote back again. He said, well, he's found a place where he can, a source where he can get American cigarette tobacco, but he's got a little problem. The little problem being that they don't have much money. Their cash flow is very bad. And could I give him a little money to start up with this cigarette thing? So, I don't know if we wrote him again or
You
we
wrote
him again.
What do you mean by
I said, what do you mean by a little money? Not much. $20,000, $30,000, $50,000.
$50,000,
Well, 50,000 would help get them started again. That would be something that a little bit of money could start them off. So I wrote him back that I didn't have any $20,000, $30,000, $50,000, and I'm going to school, and I'm working full time, and we're living in an attic in Rockaway, and he must have said to himself, you see, we were such good friends. When it comes down to helping somebody with a little bit of money, that's where the friendship and the correspondence died off again. Well, when we went to China, I said to Yetta, I'm going to try to find this Yi Ting Shun. So we get to Canton, and we had with us a courier, a guide, who was born in Hong Kong, lived in the United States, but at one time was in Kunming. So I explained the situation to him as we were flying over, and I said, I'm looking for
But this guy wouldn't be in Kunming, right? His family lives in Canton.
No, but he was in Kunming, and this guy knew Kunming, and he knew Canton. And he was speaking good English, and he knew Canton, he knew Kunming. He was a logical guy for me to work through. So I explained the situation to him.
That was in 1980.
What?
That was in 1980.
So I explained the situation to him. I said, you should be able to find it. It was a very well-known family. Yi Ting Shun is his name, and they were such like millionaires that you should be able to find a factory, find a family, find a factory. So he looked, and each day we were there for a few days. Each day.
Well, we were in Canton also.
Yeah, we were in Canton. I'm talking about
This
Canton.
is part of our trip.
Yeah, we asked him each day in Canton. At the end of the day, well, how'd you make out? Did you find? No, he couldn't find him. He's having a difficulty, but I'll check with somebody else tomorrow. Eventually, we left Canton. He hadn't found anything about him. Then we get to Kunming. And the reason we took this particular trip, I want to go back to Kunming to show you where I was stationed. And I couldn't even recognize Kunming. We came into the airport, and we rode into town. There's a big wide boulevard I didn't recognize, couldn't recognize where I was. And we looked all over, and I thought I recognized some side street, might have been the main street then. And anyhow, as we're coming back to the airport, I said, all right, you can't find Yi Ting Shun. I'll talk to you about it later. Where would it be that the United States Air Force would be based during the war? You were in Kunming before. Where would they be? So he points out the window over there in a hill. Didn't look like anything, but to satisfy him, I took a picture of the place, wasn't it? And eventually we found where I was stationed was right at the airport. I should have realized that the airport, it's actually not an airport, just a landing strip. That was where I was. We were at the landing strip. So
you know how Jonathan gets excited? He suddenly recognized this street.
yeah,
Boy, did he get excited. Started running around there.
yeah,
It was walled in.
taking pictures.
In Kunming, when we were there, because he had been looking for this.
So anyhow,
to
I
recognize
eventually
something.
talked to this
Nothing
guy afterward
Like
on the
until
way
he saw
home,
this place.
and I talked to other people since, and they said they could have told you before you started looking that he wouldn't be there. Why? Well, they have a cultural revolution. First place, he had contact with Americans, which was one strike. Anybody had contact with Americans, Cultural Revolution would take care of him. Second place, he was an intellectual. He had a graduate degree. That was enough to make him not have a chance. Third place, he came from a wealthy family. His family were wealthy and they were established, and apparently they worked with the Japanese or whatever. So it says the odds that he would ever be alive now would be 5 million to 1. Says you can never find him. But anyhow, that's the story of Yi Ting Shan.
And you got that one other story of when the guy came to you with the gun.
Oh yeah. Well, as I said, I was in charge of the paying the Chinese money. One day a colonel comes in and he puts down a bunch of vouchers, and I look through the vouchers. It's hundreds of thousands of dollars. So it's okay. I'll look them over. He says, "Whoa, I've got clearance. Yeah, if you had enough points to go home, you had to go and get signed each. You had to go to the post exchange. They didn't owe him any money. You had to go to the signal court or this, or he turned in that or whatever. You had to get clearance, and everything was cleared except for the finance department." He said, I'm ready to go home. He said, "You got to get this thing." I said, "Well, you can take them any place you want, but if you're giving them to me to do it, I look them over. I got to see that they're in order." Well, I look over all these vouchers, and I find that they're all signed by one man. Hundreds of thousands of dollars signed by one guy. So he comes in, I say, "This is not payable." I said, "Regulations say you got to get a receipt from each person you give the money to." He says, "Are you foolish?" He says, "You can't get a I'm an intelligence. Want me to go to a spy and have him sign his name? He has to be undercover." So my interpreter signed that I had given the money. I said, "Well, it may be great, but I can't pay them on that basis." So he said, "What do I do now?" I said, "Well, you can go into the colonel, and if he wants to pay it, it's okay with me. I'm not going to put my name on that voucher." So the colonel comes out to me after a while, and he says, "Isn't there something you can do to help this man?" I said, "Well, I've helped him already. I told him why I can't pay the voucher." So a day or two later, this guy comes in with another set of vouchers, each one signed by an individual man, adding up to the same amount of money. He says, "Well, how'd I know?" I said, "They're great if I hadn't seen the other ones. Having seen the other one, that one man signed the whole thing, and now you bring in all these signatures from different people, I know that it's not the truth, it's a forgery." So he says, "Why don't we discuss this?" He says, "Why don't you come to my quarters tonight, and we'll talk it over." And he's sort of intimating that he's going to make it worth my while. And I said, "Oh, no." I says, "Don't worry. You get all my attention here for free. Uncle Sam is paying me quite well. I think it was about $66 a month." I said, "I'm getting paid fine, and any attention, you'll get as much attention here as you would in your quarters, and everything will be fine." Well, we didn't pay him, and about a day later, he was picked up by the...
Oh, you forgot about the gun.
Oh, yeah, the gun part. So to induce me to come to his quarters and be friendly, he says, "Here's a present for you," and he puts down a gun. So I said, "I don't want any gun. What the hell do I want a gun for?" He says, "Well, it's a present." He says, I'm entitled, as an intelligence officer, I can issue anybody I want a gun, and I'm giving you a formal slip authorizing this gun to be... I said, "I don't want the damn thing." Well, he convinces me to keep the gun. So I kept the gun. What happened with the gun? Well, that's another story. I keep the gun. And a day later, this guy was picked up by the CIA, and he served time in Leavenworth. He had stolen this money, and this was all a forgery.
What do you mean he had stolen the money?
He wanted to get this money. If this money were paid to him as money that was paid out, he would keep the money.
Right, but you didn't give him the money.
No.
So, but how could he be arrested though? You mean just for trying to get the money?
For trying to get the money. These were all forgeries that he made out. He signed the voucher. His interpreter signed the voucher. He signed the voucher, and he had never paid this money. He couldn't prove that he paid it. And he served time in Leavenworth.
But
I
who
always
figured
say,
out that
what?
How did the connection get made that the CIA picked him up?
They must have been watching him.
Do you think the colonel took them up?
Maybe. I don't know. I didn't tell anybody. I minded my own business. But eventually he was picked up by the CIA, and I know that he served time in Leavenworth.
And you always said that if you had...
If I had gone to his quarters, and whether I did something or not, I would have been suspected too. They might have picked me up being in connection with him. The fact that I stayed in the office and didn't go to his quarters. And the follow-up story on the gun, this gun, I didn't want the damn thing. And I sent home a couple of packages. I had some training books, and I had some Chinese books and different things. And I figured I made up a package, and I figured they said they're going to x-ray all the packages, and anything was contraband, they confiscated. So I figured, they take it out, I don't want the gun anyhow. So I stuck the gun in with all his books and the other